How's everybody doing today? Thank you for coming back to another episode of Beyond the Blueprint, powered by Lapolis Electric. And I'm your host, Steven Marcelino, Vice President of Sales with Lapolis Electric. And I'm here today with a good friend, Joe Hauser. He is the owner of Houseman Plumbing, and I'm very excited to have you on here. Joe, thank you for joining me. And let's hear a little bit about yourself and Houseman Plumbing.
Right. So I started plumbing, I want to say around 17 years old, 18 years old. Started with a company in City Island, worked my way up from there. Probably did plumbing for them, I want to say roughly between 13 or 14 years. Then I went on my own. Around 2007, I went on my own, created Houseman Plumbing. Started in 2007. I've just been going ever since. You know, we do a lot of commercial buildings in the city. We also do residential. We started from 2007, but learned since I was about 14, 15 years old, actually. I was a little younger.
Wow.
I wasn't supposed to be working, but, kind of dropped out of school.
No one's going to hold it against you now a few years later, right?
Yep.
So your journey leading up to plumbing, tell us a little bit about, how you became a plumber, what made you choose, the trades in general, a little bit about your childhood and the developmental stages of getting you to where you are today.
Right. So one day I was sitting on a toilet bowl, and I said, I want to do plumbing. So, I'm only joking. I'm joking. How it started was I didn't really want to be a plumber. I was working in a gas station pumping gas in City Island. And there was a guy from a company in City Island that used to come and break my balls every morning. Hey, Joe, you want to come do plumbing? Come down, fill out the application. We'll get you in. Kept just, whatever. I was one of those kids just, drinking, smoking, just didn't care about anything.
Yeah.
Then finally he said, Joe, you're freezing your balls off. Joe, it's hot out, pumping gas in the middle of the wintertime, middle of the summertime. Finally, I went up there, filled out the application, and started plumbing. Then from that point, just learned the trade. I was coming in 2 hours early every day. He was showing me the trade. Great guy.
That's awesome. He's like your mentor.
Just basically my mentor at the time, and he was still a great guy. Passed away, but he's. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have even done plumbing. I would have probably been still in a gas station and doing nothing at all.
Wow.
So
he completely changed the course of your life.
Yeah.
That's
great
awesome.
Great guy.
So when you started with him, were you focused on like residential service calls? Were you doing commercial plumbing? What was your focus?
So when we started with him, I basically do what I do now. All the commercial inside the city. We do all 5 boroughs, but mainly the city. And just, going into the buildings and seeing how people lived, seeing, all the nice things that people have in life. I said, you know what, I got to pick my ass up and do a little bit more, than what I'm doing to get the finer things in life. So that's what made me spark to get my own company going and do my own thing. And, that was it. And from that point, just took off from there.
And that's one big thing, especially on my side, too, You're a plumber, I'm an electrician, we're both in the trades, and, you go out there and you work in all sorts of different places that you may have or I may have never walked into if I wasn't in the trade industry.
Right.
I go to hospitals, data centers, beautiful buildings on Park Avenue, and you look around and you're like, wow, there's so much more to life than what we know when we first enter the business. And it inspires you to want to grow and do better and provide a better life, not only for yourself, but for your family.
Right.
And it's a truly awesome thing. I really think that, the mindset that we develop from growing up and working in New York, especially New York City, it's almost unmatched to anywhere else in the world. I mean, the pace we move at, there's the beauty and the ugly side of the city, and we get to see both.
Yeah.
And it really instills, core values into the way we think and we operate on a day-to-day basis. So tell me a little, I heard you say when you started with the gentleman that you were plumbing with, when you started learning, like your mentor, you would show up 2 hours early and learn before the workday. Tell me a little bit about, how important it is to show up to work early, time management, and just kind of that overall passion for what you do to be successful.
Right. So when you're in the trade, obviously you have, times you have to show up to jobs. Everybody's got to be at the job site at 9 a.m. So, it was important to be in the company at 7:30 a.m. You weren't there at 7:30 a.m., you throw the whole day off. So very important to be there early, making sure you get to these people on time, especially when you're dealing with, we were dealing with people, and still till today, I deal with, a lot of Madonna's properties. So, imagine you go there and, I can't make it, or I'm 2 hours late because the helper's running behind or the mechanic's running behind. So it's really important to make it there on time. And if you don't, you know what? They're going to end up calling someone else.
Yeah.
You lose your company. Once you lose accounts, that's it. Everything starts going downhill from there. So, being on time is one of the most important things.
I agree, because one thing as human beings, we don't really have control over a lot. Mm-hmm. But one of the main things we have control over is our time.
Right.
If people are going to turn around and say, oh, well, there was traffic, oh, there's this, there's that, and they were supposed to be on a job or at the office at, 7 a.m., it's as an example, and they don't leave until 6:30 in the morning, all right, well, you're setting yourself up for failure. If you know you need to be somewhere, it's a 30-minute drive, and you have to factor for all the obstacles that life could throw at you, leave at 5:30 in the morning. So what if you're there 30 minutes early? Yeah. It shows you give a shit.
Yeah, you better to be there early than late because, some people have a routine. Listen, I get up to a routine every day. I get up, do my exercise, give myself an hour break, and just make sure, no matter what, even if I even save time for traffic, make sure, you get up early. Chance of hitting traffic is very high in New York City. So get up early, do your thing, and, you make it to that job site. Half the guys that work for me, if they don't make it on time to meet up with the other guys, meet the guys at the job site, go straight to the job. It's just a way to switch things around a little bit, but yeah.
Aside from time management, what do you feel are some of the most important, attributes to have when handling clients in general to be a successful businessman, businesswoman, even boiling it down to, a successful project manager, salesperson? What are those attributes, time management? What else would you attribute to being successful?
You make them happy, too. Listen, if you go in, some people think the price is too high. Some people want a specific day, specific time. You work with people. If you can't work with people, if you don't have patience to talk to people, these are things that's going to set you up for failure. If you tell them, no, sorry, I can't do it at this time. No, sorry, I can't do it this day. Obviously these people are going to say, you know what, I get somebody else to do it this day. I get somebody else to do it at this time. So just basically, just working around their schedule and, making your customer happy.
Yeah, I think, and you and I did a project together in Brooklyn. I'm not going to name the address of the customer just out of, confidentiality for them. But, that was the job. We had to go back ourselves 5-6 times, and you would call me at 11 o'clock in the afternoon and say, hey, Steven, listen, the super needs us there now. Can you get there?
Yeah.
And we adjust.
Yep.
It's, and listen, at the end of the day, service calls, emergency service calls, they're never convenient. An emergency doesn't wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning and say, all right, I'm gonna happen now at the beginning of the day. Exactly. Or I'll call so you could schedule for me tomorrow.
Yep.
And that's the beauty about providing a service and understanding that side of the business is adjustments need to be made on a daily basis in the schedule. Mm-hmm. And if you're on a long-term project, okay, I could go and accommodate this emergency service call at 11 in the afternoon with this crew or with this crew.
Right.
And just knowing who's on what job and who's best to handle the situation. Mm-hmm. And I feel finally once we were able to remediate the problem, after a couple site visits and material getting delivered and different kind of troubleshooting and whatnot, the customer ultimately was happy.
Yes.
And we were able to make those adjustments and get to the site and accommodate.
Right.
And that speaks to your point. If you're never available or, if you always complain, oh, I can't get there or I can't do it for this or, the sun's out now but it's not going to be out later, you come up with whatever excuse. I'm not the only electrician. And you're not the only plumber in New York. So, it's very important to be on top of that customer service.
You guys did a great job, too, because, remember, somebody came in originally that did a botched job.
Yeah.
They took the stuff apart, didn't remember what electrical went, ripped the things apart. You guys came in, troubleshooted it.
Yeah.
And you know what?
And that was the problem. A lot of the time, and I'm sure you see it on your end, somebody came in, they used the wrong wire, they used the wrong devices, they practically, I think they burnt out the motor.
Burnt the motor.
The way it was wired. You guys had to respond, get the motor repaired. You sent it to a shop off-site, got the motor repaired. And we jumped through the hoops to get this back up and running. We had one of our senior technicians come out, They troubleshot all the wiring. They troubleshot the motors, all the devices connected. We were able to find the root cause of the problem on the electrical and the mechanical side. And, we were able to work as a team and get the building up and running again and made sure that the issue they ran into now doesn't happen in the future. So, and that's what it's all about is making sure the customers are happy.
Right.
So
Well, you guys are great with troubleshooting it. So
thank you.
If you weren't able to troubleshoot, forget about it. Everybody was in trouble over there. So
yeah, exactly.
Big trouble.
We kept us out of trouble for being able to troubleshoot. So let me ask you another question specifically about your business, Joe. Were you the founder, or was this a family business? How did I know you spoke a little about your upbringing and how you got to plumbing, but was this a concept prior to you getting involved, or how did this come about?
Yeah, so no one in my family ever did plumbing, so I basically was the sole proprietor, the owner of it that came up with the whole situation. The plumbing company. But yeah, no, it was my doing. Nobody in my family ever done plumbing before. There was nobody in the trade at all. But yeah, listen, it was something I just started, and just flourished.
What was your first project? Do you remember what your first job was, or first couple jobs?
I do actually remember my first job was, I got a call in City Island, actually. And just, where I came from, basically the whole company that I worked for, pumping the gas there.
And did you grow up in City Island?
I didn't grow up in City Island. I grew up, where did I grow up, actually? I grew up in multiple places, I grew up, I was born and raised in Soundview.
Okay.
So from Soundview, I had a little bit of a rough upbringing.
Understood.
So Soundview was basically switched over, raised in group homes.
Gotcha.
So from that point, from being raised in group homes, moved into my father's house in Throgs Neck. So most of the time I was actually in Throgs Neck, I want to say. So,
okay.
But jumping back over to the first job that I had there, it was in one of the restaurants. I'm not going to name the restaurant, but they were flooded from the bottom to almost the friggin' ceiling. So
wow.
3 feet of water from the ceiling, and it was pretty fucking bad. So I'll never forget it because it was a little terrifying, actually. I went down there and I seen the water, and just started plumbing. I was still young. I said, let me run in there and see if I could unclog this drain that was flooding everything. So I, without any wetsuit on or anything, I just fucking walked into that basement in City Island. Fucking thing was up to past my stomach, my chest, like just literally walking through it. So I'm walking in, I got a little flashlight, looking for a house trap. And then I found the house trap. I'm trying to stick my hand in there to clear it out. It was disgusting. It was horrible.
I was going to say, you have to be careful sticking your hand in a drain in the city.
It was bad.
Especially in a restaurant.
Oh, it was terrifying, actually. It gets better than that. It was, I had my little brother was with me, and he's behind me, and he has one of those little hat things with the light on it.
Minor light?
Oh, my God. So he's walking in, and he's looking around. He goes, Joe. I said, what's that? He goes, there's water rats all over the place. I said, oh my. So they were like hanging out all on the top. I'll never forget that time. That was my first probably big, terrifying job. But I was able to clear it. We got out of there, and then I had to pump the water out. It took 2 days to pump that water out.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was a shitty job.
No pun intended, right?
No pun intended. Shitty.
And those are, those jobs are like a curse and a blessing because you learn a lot from those projects, right? When you see, you go in, you followed the procedure that you followed, but now you could also help people moving forward maybe on a preventative maintenance side, right? And teach people or implement the service plan to ensure that they don't run into a situation like that again. Like, hey, listen, clear your pipes every, so often. Or, do you guys offer that kind of service to people as well? Tell us a little bit about that.
Actually, after I had cleared that drain out, we had found out it was their grease trap.
Wow.
So they weren't maintaining their grease trap. And for restaurants, you don't maintain your grease trap, what happens? That grease is going to back up. It's going to go into the main drain and coagulates in there, and then you're screwed. So we ended up going every 6 months, and then that's when, obviously we started to throw the maintenance situation in there, and That's a very important thing for restaurants. They don't maintain those grease traps. It's doomsday. But we do maintenance now. With all the buildings in the city, every 3 to 6 months, snake jobs. Check the water lines and just keeping the maintenance going. If not, they found out the hard way.
Yeah, no, it's true, and that's when those emergencies come up.
Right.
Similar for me, on my end with the maintenance, if people let their electrical system sit there for 50, 60 years and they never perform any type of maintenance or, checkups on the electrical infrastructure, breakers are going to blow, fuses are going to blow, main switches are going to trip, fires could happen, and it snowballs from there. And then instead of getting yourself on a preventative and predictive schedule, you're trying to respond to emergency services. You're throwing, good money after bad money, and the situations, start to pile up and get worse throughout time.
Yeah. Well,
So it's important.
Well, the key with that is they don't want to spend the money in the beginning. A lot of people, They
Exactly.
don't want to spend the money on maintenance, but then what happens? You don't spend the money on maintenance, little here, little there. When that big situation happens, now you're spending double, triple the amount of money.
Yeah.
So it's always better to be, smarter than.
Let me ask you now, the way the I guess the world is in general, the economy, the supply chain. How are these things? Because I know with the electrical industry, the supply chain is very damaged right now.
Yeah.
So if somebody does lose a panel or a specific set of fuses or some kind of main switch, they could be looking at very egregious lead times to actually get the equipment back on site, which is kind of pushing people more than anything to stay on top of preventative maintenance. So if there's repairs that need to be made, maybe it's a screw turned here or a piece of hardware replaced there, opposed to a full panel replacement and needing to wait X amount of weeks or months to get that panel. And then you need to bring in temporary power to stand in for that, function. And it's just a snowball effect of problems. How is the supply chain right now in the plumbing industry, and what can people do to prevent, any kind of problems or waiting for parts to make sure their buildings are properly functioning?
Right. So most of the plumbing parts are readily available with all the supply houses, but as far as things that we have to get shipped in from Europe, parts for shower bodies, those end up taking a month now to come. So
Wow.
instead of it being that 3 to 5 days, it's a 30-day wait. So some people, if they have a European shower body, they're without their shower for about a month.
Wow.
It's pretty tough. But as far as the main things like the piping, the main water lines, waste lines, and everything is pretty much readily available. So it doesn't affect us that much.
Yeah, the only thing I guess for your clients then, or for people that have the plumbing systems, which is every building in America, you hope at least.
Right.
The big thing is then for the preventative maintenance is to, I guess, mitigate water bursts and what are some of the things that could happen if they're not properly performing that maintenance in their building of a program.
Floods.
Floods. That's it.
Floods that cause damage that they. You'd be surprised how much damage water can cause. So,
Oh yeah.
I've seen it all. It takes out boilers, hot water heaters. Takes out a lot of things. Computers. Anything that water takes out. I mean, I think water is more deadly than fire when you look at it. It's just
Well, and water can cause a fire.
Yeah, and water can cause a fire. Yes, but I've seen a lot of terrible water. Forget about it. I've seen the most damage. I mean, think about it. If you do a bad job on the 16th floor and you have $1 million apartments below you, $1 million paintings.
Yeah.
Imagine the insurance cover for that. So
100%.
You really gotta.
Yeah, and water's like the number one enemy, especially in electric.
Yep.
If water and electric mix, it's not a good scene.
Yeah.
We've seen it throughout the city. Especially like with a lot of these larger commercial properties that we work with. That have bus duct or a large 4,000 amp switchgear service. Situations where water has come in contact with that electrical equipment and it blows walls apart. A lot of our equipment when it's built, just to kind of give everyone the idea, there's typically a 3-foot curb in front of the door to keep the water out, and then the physical equipment is built into an explosion-proof room.
Right.
So if it does blow up, if it comes into contact with water or whatever the situation is, it's at least contained.
Yeah.
You know, there was one situation that we got called in on where a bus duct had blown up, and it was built in an explosion-proof room, and this it was a 4,000 amp bus duct. It blew up. The force from the explosion was so strong it blew out the whole back wall of the explosion-proof room.
Jesus.
You know, and God, you know, thank God nobody was in the room.
Right.
You know,
Right.
while that happened, and that was from, you know, a condensation pipe on a mechanical unit. You know, someone bumped into it, the pipe turned, so where the floor was supposed to be pitched, it wasn't leveled properly. It was like a perfect series of events.
Right. Right.
You know, the room filled up with, you know, just enough water to start seeping into the electrical closet. And eventually that water ran from, you know, the 22nd floor on the bus duct all the way down to the main switch.
Right.
It ran along the whole bus duct, blew on the 22nd floor, blew the room out. And then in the switchgear room, the main switch tripped and blew up as well.
Jesus.
You
Surprised
know,
they didn't have a pump in there.
the,
Pump in the floor, pump in the ground.
you know what the
sub-pump.
problem was? It was one of those typical, you know, value engineer jobs where, you know, whoever was in charge didn't want to spend or they wanted to save somebody money.
Yep.
And, you know, they didn't properly pitch the floor. Instead of using like a metal condensation pipe, they put a PVC pipe there. So the guy bumped into it. Now it basically turned into like a water fountain.
Right.
You know, the water was spitting up, didn't go to the floor drain. And the whole room filled up with water, and you know eventually the worst situation happened, and the water got onto the electrical bus duct and blew it up.
Yep.
You know, and that's one of a million. You know, I could tell you a million horror stories.
Right.
You know, because for me, I get called into all the emergencies. You
Right.
know, and I see the craziest stuff that people can imagine. So
Well, it goes with that too. Listen, they cut back, cut corners, don't put a pump in there, run the wrong stuff. What happens? Major damage. Same thing with the maintenance we were talking about before. You don't do your maintenance. You know, you cut cost, you end up paying for it at the end. So it's, you know, it's unfortunate. But yeah, you have to do the right job, and you have to overlook what you're doing all the time.
yeah, and like you said with the maintenance side too, even if you're going in to do your routine maintenance and you have your plumbers walking the floors and they see, oh wow, this condensation pipe is turned right side up when it's supposed to be facing the ground. You'll be able to, you know, kind of whack that out and pump the water out at least.
Yep.
You know, if the system's not properly set up through your, through their visual checks when they're walking through these, you know, mechanical rooms and different, you know, rooms throughout the buildings, they'll pick up on these things.
My guys find it all the time. My guys walk into buildings and they see we're not even there for a specific job. They'll walk in and they'll just look, and we're here for like a little broken pipe. They'll walk in and they'll say, "Who the hell did that?" You know, it's all wrong. It's like completely mixed pipes. You know, things aren't to code. And
Would they still have the blindfold on?
Yeah, it's just like, believe it or not, some of these buildings, they have their supers do it.
Yeah.
Supers will do it, or they'll have some guy in the neighborhood, you know, some contractor or
something.
friend come in and just, you look at it, you go, who put that there? You know, especially when you walk in and you see, we've seen the most craziest things. We've seen people put PVC on gas lines. It's like, holy shit, who did that? You know, that's, forget about fire or
That's a straight up
electric.
explosion.
It's an explosion right there.
Yeah.
So, you know, my guys pointed out sometimes, hey, somebody put PVC on that gas line up there. And, you know, obviously, you know, I tell them, listen, you got to either fix it or something. Just, you know, don't just leave that there. And majority of the time they end up fixing it. But it just, to begin with, who did that? Because if we didn't see it,
It's scary.
man, fucking thing would have caused an explosion a couple of years down the road, or, you know, sooner.
And there's millions on millions of square feet of buildings in New York City that contractors like Lapolis and Houseman Plumbing haven't been inside of to uncover these issues and remediate them. You know, and the hope is that there are good contractors out there, if we're not in the building, that people do pick up on these things, because at the end of the day, if it's not done
Right.
properly, it's a straight up public safety issue at that point.
That's true. Yep.
And a lot of people don't think about that when they're building these buildings. You know, they just think, save money now, build it fast, get it done.
Yep.
And then 5, 10, 15 years down the line, all the ugly problems start to unfold.
Yep.
And that's when you find out who the good contractors are and who the bad contractors are.
Yep.
So, Joe, before we wrap up today, I want to ask you one question, you know, to see what your insight on it is. What do you feel are the top 3 attributes of being a successful entrepreneur are from day one to where you are now? What are the 3, skills that you've carried with yourself to keep yourself at the top of the top of industry?
My main one is just working with people. That's the main thing. Making sure buildings are happy with pricing I give them. Mainly, making the board happy in the building. Going, sitting down, taking a little extra time, going to a board meeting, talking to the building themselves, explaining to them what I'm doing, explaining to them the job, explaining to them our costs, and explaining to them basically, what we're doing as far as the job they're hiring us on. Other things are basically, making sure we have the correct mechanics for the correct jobs. Making sure these guys are on the job site, making sure these guys are there, on time, making sure if there's any questions that need to be answered that they can't answer, I'm always there to answer it. Just basically being on point, it's if you can't basically sleep throughout the day and hope for your guys to just run the company and you got to be on top of things. That's the main thing.
And that's great. When you have an owner like yourself and Carmine Lapolis, and other very successful entrepreneurs that I do know and I deal with on a day-to-day basis, the owner's involved with the company's going to run, smooth.
Right.
When you get those owners that are, absent or, they just don't care, that's when you see companies fall.
Right.
So it's very good that that you are involved like that, and that it shows in your success that you do have as a plumbing contractor in the New York City area. Which if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. I truly believe that.
That's true.
Anywhere in the world.
That's true.
So Joe, I want to thank you.
You're very welcome.
Out here today.
Yep. You're very welcome.
It was a pleasure to have you on the Beyond the Blueprint podcast. And I'd like to thank all the listeners for watching another episode of Beyond the Blueprint, powered by Lapolis Electric. And I'm your host, Stephen Marcelino. Thanks for watching.